From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tenori, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself. Yo, welcome back. Dr. Jason here, Dental Lighthouse Podcast, and I am really excited to be with you. Why am I excited to be with you? No, this is not one of those Jason ramblings or Jason musings where Jason just kind of talks in circles. Nope. You are not going to be exposed to that today. This is going to be one of our listeners calling in and unpacking a dilemma that he has. This is not some type of key opinion leader in the industry. This is a wet-fingered dentist that's dealing with real problems like you and I, and reached out to me for a little bit of advice. And I said, you know what? Let's get on the podcast. Let's have you unpack your situation so our listeners can kind of hear where you're coming from, and then we'll talk it through. So without further ado, I want to invite Luke from suburban Chicago on the show. Luke, how are you doing, brother?
Good, thank you.
And Luke, you are with your, I'm assuming, wife. Is that true?
Yes.
All right. So we have Luke and Mrs. Luke. Mrs. Luke, what's your name?
Kelsey.
Okay. So we have Luke and Kelsey. Mm-hmm. Luke, let's just start from the top. Instead of me kind of reiterating what we've talked about via our email exchange, I would love for you to share with my listeners what exactly you're up against, give a little bit of context to your situation, and then we can start to peel back the onion.
Sure. Graduated dental school in 2011. In 2017, opened a scratch start dental office, ground up. Built a building, and have slowly grown. It was originally 6 ops. Now we're up to 10. It was originally just me, one administrative person, and a dental assistant. And now we've grown to the point where I have myself, 2 full-time associates, 6 hygienists, 5 dental assistants, and 5 patient coordinators. And we're running up against space constraints with our 10 treatment rooms. Our area is continuing to grow, so I see more green space for the business and have been considering building a bigger facility to accommodate that.
Awesome. So I appreciate the context. Let me ask some follow-up questions just to give our listeners a little bit more context. What is your insurance participation?
We're mainly PPO.
Okay. And being that what are you, about 30 minutes outside of Chicago?
Yep.
Being that you're 30 minutes outside of Chicago, how is it from a team member recruitment perspective, like associates and hygienists? And is it easy? Is it hard? Is it in the middle?
Hygiene has been very hard recently, like everywhere else. Other positions have been relatively straightforward and easy to hire for.
Okay. And I love the fact that you brought Kelsey on because specifically when I do one-on-one coaching, it'll be just me and the owner doctor, and then I'll be getting a perspective that I'm kind of like scratching my head about, but I can't really question the doctor because he knows. So the fact that we have you on, Kelsey, I just love. Not that you're going to challenge Luke, but is there anything that he shared that you're like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not exactly true, or just give your side of the story before we kind of unpack some of this?
Just a little bit of, I would say things have grown a lot quicker. He said it was kind of a slow, steady growth, but I've kind of from when we originally started with what I imagined this, let's call it our baby to be, grew really fast. And I imagined it being much smaller, being 30 minutes outside of Chicago, more being like hometown dentist small thing.
Yeah.
And here we are with however many staff you have 7, 8 years later, which felt really fast to me.
It's so funny you say that because whenever I talk to Dennis, to your exact point, Kelsey, like they move at a pace that in their world is normal, right? Like they want to implement changes that in their mind is like, oh, all we have to do is this, this, and this. But they don't realize like the trail of bodies that their pace and their change has on everyone else. So it's so interesting to hear that from Luke's perspective, it was just like a slow and steady kind of smell the roses type growth pace. But from your perspective, it's been, like a whirlwind, and nothing against your perspective or his perspective, like, but it's just been my experience that the doctor just tends to move at a pace that in their own mind is like normal, but in everyone else's mind is like, dude, like, you're going 100 miles an hour, slow the car down a little bit. So.
Right. And we couldn't be any more opposite in that regard. Like he is very driven and I am just kind of the opposite, let's say.
Yeah,
we
fair.
Each other out.
Fair. So I feel like I have a lot of context. Your situation is not a unique one, and I'm not saying that to like, make you feel, commonplace. But usually, if there's a doc that has a good entrepreneurial mind, knows how to talk to people, knows how to lead people, and is in an area that is somewhat demanding. This happens all the time, right? We get to within 10 years, we get to a place where we're reaching some level of capacity in terms of either the facility or human capital or what have you. So my advice to you is not going to be like, well, when this happens, you have to do this. My advice to you is really just based on what your ultimate vision is, not necessarily for the business, but for your life. So, and we can kind of unpack how I start to try to coach people up on that, but let's just see where you guys are at. Like, what is the vision? Like, what do you want? More importantly, personally, so we can figure out a way to accomplish that via the professional vehicle that you have built.
Want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we have 3 kids. The youngest one's 4. So in my mind, we have 14 years here. We can't go to Italy for 3 weeks until she's grown and out of the house. So until then,
unless you bring her.
Unless you bring her.
Yeah. In my mind, until then, I want to continue to work but have flexibility. We like to travel with our kids and go places, in North America, let's say, from time to time, and have some schedule flexibility. And the growth of the practice has allowed for that, and that's been awesome. So yeah, I would just like to keep working, keep getting what I get out of the business, and have some, personal make some memories with our kids and travel and have some flexibility along the way.
Okay, Kelsey.
Yeah, I guess we kind of hit this in the fall when he brought about the idea of a bigger office. First, his ideas were really big of like bigger office, renting out space, like really big. And at first I was like an absolute no, pump the brakes. This isn't happening. Mostly because when we started the practice, it kind of felt like, well, that is the goal. We're going to start the practice and we're going to grow it. And then I've never really seen him or experienced him put on the brakes in terms of like, there's always a next step. There's always a next goal. So when we talked about it, I was like, well, haven't we reached it? Isn't this the goal? Isn't this the end? And we're early 40s. So it's not like we're ready to retire, but at some point I would like to think about what that might look like. And if you have bigger office, more responsibility, all of the things that come with it, is that harder to then step out of and exit and move to the next phase of life when we're ready, when our kids are older?
Love it. And I love this conversation because it sounds like you both want, you both have goals, right? Like we're trying to reach this finish line or we're moving towards this North Star. But if I'm hearing you guys correctly, your your North Star is maybe different in terms of what you're actually looking for. So perhaps, and again, I'm just going to make some assumptions here. Perhaps Luke's North Star is more income, more profitability, a bigger team to scratch that entrepreneurial itch. And perhaps Kelsey's North Star is, when is it time to just kind of take a step back and enjoy the fruits of our labor and, you know, have the business be less dependent on you and, you be more present at home or just be more active in family life versus not to suggest that you're absentee by any stretch, but just selfishly wanting you around the house a little bit more. I mean, am I correct in that's kind of the silos that you guys are maybe in?
Yes, I would say for me, it's hard to gauge what kind of stress level is caused inside of his mind. Like, I don't know how much his mental space is occupied by the office and growing the business. So maybe I have a little bit of fear because I know what it was like when we first started it. It was very stressful.
Yeah.
So now that I get this little glimpse of like, wow, he's taking more time off and he has more freedom, it feels nice. And then you think like, why would you go back to that? If you wouldn't have to, why would you go back to that? We don't have to. Thankfully, we're at a place where we wouldn't have to take on any more responsibility and we could live very comfortably. So it would be hard for me to watch him go through that again.
So therein lies the question, right? And it's simple, just not easy. So what's the answer to that question, Luke? Like, why, not to oversimplify it, but why are we considering this?
Because my natural instinct as an entrepreneur is when there's opportunity there, you should take it.
Yeah. I love that answer. And I feel that I would have answered it the same exact way when I was in your position. Kelsey, do you feel like currently, and again, I'm not a marriage counselor and I don't pretend to be one on TV, but do you feel like either currently or maybe when Luke was really ramping up the practice that yes, he was around physically, but emotionally and mentally, he was maybe at the office?
Yes. And he has made a lot of improvements over time, but there would be times, and he would admit that we were on a date and he was not with me there, mentally with me because he was thinking about whatever happened that day. And I do think the further he is away from the office physically, the better it is. If we're at our house, which is 5 minutes down the road from the office, I think it's taking up mental space, just being that close proximity wise.
Yeah. Fair. So let's talk about some solutions here. How do we allow Luke to scratch this entrepreneurial itch? Because if I'm hearing you guys correctly, it's beyond money, right? Like you
Right.
have the money that you need. Maybe there's a bigger purpose, life mission. Like for example, for me, I just have this mindset of I want to create so much opportunity for team members where they wouldn't have had it in other situations, right? So we have 170 employees, and I feel like a direct responsibility to create like awesome work environments for as many people as possible. That's kind of what gets me out of bed. And maybe it's something along those lines as well for you. Scratching the entrepreneurial itch can mean a lot of things. It can mean taking advantage of opportunity. It can mean, solving problems that you didn't have when you had 10 people, stuff like that, right? So I guess the question then becomes, how do we allow Luke to scratch the entrepreneurial itch and to do the things that are equated with that, while at the same time making sure that Kelsey's concerns are heard, validated, and addressed? That I want him to be present, be less stressed, and not go back to what it was like, in 2018, 19, and 20. So if we could answer that question, if we could solve for that, then I think we have a path forward. The question then becomes, do you feel, Luke, that you have the systems, the internal systems and work systems, the tools that would allow you to take on this opportunity while at the same time address Kelsey's very valid concerns?
Not currently. And that's why, in hindsight, I'm glad she pumped the brakes, because I would have just forged ahead and gone and done it. And she saw that that wasn't a healthy choice at that time. So now we're kind of in the discovery process of, am I capable to delegate and get the systems in place that I would need to potentially do this project without any additional stress for me long term?
And I don't know your perspective of, with the amount of staff you have. I always think like he loves being the coach of the team. That is his favorite thing. He likes providing more opportunities, giving people a good job somewhere where they enjoy coming to work every day. And I love that. I just think the more people you have, the more problems you have, unless you are willing to have someone else be in charge of the team. But I think you like that part. So how do you get rid of not being the coach if that's your favorite part about it?
And in my mind, stepping away from the chair gives me capacity to manage the larger team.
Yeah, 100%. So I like to, and you guys have probably, or maybe, heard me talk about like the ideal week template. And it's something that I live by, right? So first thing we have to decide is, how many hours are you going to dedicate per week to work, right? And I'll just throw out a number. Let's say it's 40. So you and Kelsey have had a conversation that, look, I am going to be all in at work for 40 hours a week. And I need you to hold me accountable that if I go 1 minute above that, then we put the brakes on, we kibosh it, right? And then it's just a matter of being disciplined. When I'm at work, I'm at work. And when I'm not at work, I'm not at work. I'm home, I'm present. I'm emotionally, mentally, spiritually available. So that's the first thing, right? How many hours per week? And then we have to decide, okay, if I'm going to dedicate 40 hours towards work, of those 40 hours, how many am I at the chair and how many am I not at the chair? And perhaps right now you're at the chair 3 days a week. I have no idea, but most people that have described the situation that you described are typically at the chair 3 days a week. So you're 25 hours a week at the chair, which means you have 15 hours a week to be the CEO, the clinical director, the life coach, the Dave Ramsey in terms of helping these 20-year-olds get their financial world in order. And at that breakdown, can you scale? Can you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish? You got to test drive it for 3 months, 6 months. And if it's working, great. If it's not working, then you have to pivot. You have to say, well, maybe I need to go to 2 days clinical per week. And maybe I need to spend more time on leadership development. I work on my organization about 20 hours per week. I'm not at the chair anymore. And a few years ago, I made the decision to intentionally make the business less dependent on me. So what I do in my organization is only leadership development and clinical development. So I'll work with the associates and help them become more efficient at case presentation, more efficient at placing an implant, get through procedures at a higher clinical level in a more timely manner, right? So I wear that hat. And the other hat I wear is leadership development. So we have an organizational chart, an accountability chart. I'm sure you have one as well. So I'm dedicating my time towards the growth and development of these key people, not everybody. What do you probably have, like 25 people on your team, maybe 20 to 25 people on your team. So you can't grow everybody. That's just not a sustainable model, but you can grow the 4 or 5 team leads that you have. You can totally pour into them and help them become better leaders for the people that they serve, right? That's the way that you scale it. And that's how I started to do it 10 years ago. And it's slowly but surely gotten to the point where right now I have about 20 leaders in the office, but I'm still only responsible for 5, right? So those 5 people have roughly 4 people on each of their teams. And then it just kind of works that way. So that would be a thought process, a exercise that I think you could consider if this is the direction that we're going to go in. I would love for you to punch some holes in what I just said and say to me, "Oh, I hear you, Jason, but that wouldn't work because of dot dot dot."
I'm not going to punch holes in it. I enjoy feeling connected to everyone that works at the office, like directly connected to them. So that would be, and I feel like I would have to let go of some of that to accomplish what we're talking about.
Do you feel connected to patients that you want to make sure you're seeing them, or just the staff?
Team members.
More.
So. Yes.
Yeah, fair. Love it. So do you agree that of the 40, again, just I have no idea what your goal is, but let's just call it 40 hours. Do you agree that of the 40 hours, you want to say roughly down the middle, you're going to spend half at the chair, half away from the chair?
I would say less than that. I'd say 10 at the chair and let's call it 30 away.
Love it. You're making my point for me. So 10 at the chair, 30 away from the chair. In those 30 hours, right, you're developing leaders, safe to say? You should be.
I should be.
Okay.
That's an improvement opportunity.
Okay. So we're gonna set up some systems, some protocols where you're pouring into I'm making some assumptions here, but let's say you have an office manager, you have a front desk lead, you have a hygiene lead, you have an assistant lead, right? Let's say you have those 4 people. You're pouring into those 4 people. You're helping those 4 people become the best version of themselves because they have teams of 5, 6, 7 people that report to them. And you want those people to grow their particular team. One way to do it, not to suggest that it's the right way, but one way to do it. So of the 30 hours, maybe it's 10 where you're developing systems, solving problems, and growing these leaders. That still leaves you a ton of time. And again, there's power in words. When you say connect with your team, there's literally, and I have dedicated time where I call it shaking hands and kissing babies, where I'm like an hour per day. I'll go to an office and I'll just walk up and down the halls. I'll have absolutely no agenda. And I just want to hear how people are doing. And it could be work related. It could be non-work related. I just, how was your sister's wedding? Or, oh my gosh, you said your husband just took a new job. How is that going? So for me, that fills up that need to connect, right? Now, if I'm shaking hands and kissing babies and I have a hygienist comes to me that says, we really have to do something about Dr. So-and-so's lack of periodontal diagnosis, I have to decide, okay, is this a problem that I need to solve? Or do I have systems in place and protocols in place to make sure that that gets addressed? Because even as recent as 5 years ago, I'd be shaking hands and kissing babies, and somebody would come to me and say, Jason, I really need you to look at this x-ray. Dr. Smith did this filling and it's not good. What are you going to do about it? And then I would say, hold my beer. I can solve this. And I would go on a tangent and I would solve it. And I would solve it the right way. But in doing that, I caught all of my leaders off at the knees, all of the people that I was trying to empower to manage these problems, instead of me giving it to them, instead of me saying, what did Dr. So and so say when you went to him about this situation? I would just say, I got this. Give me your problem. I'm going to run with it. And a lot of it for me was ego. I was like, well, this place runs because of me. I can solve everything. So yeah, give me your problem. I'll take on all problems. You got anything? Give it to me. Give it to me. Give it to me. And I was just kind of, even though I was trying to delegate leadership and giving people autonomy, I was just bypassing them. I was just solving problems that they should have ultimately had the opportunity to solve, because I can fix everything. And I know you're the same way. I can just tell. Like, you can fix everything. I have no question that you can fix everything. So if that's what you truly want, then we have to pivot and say, okay, we have to set something up differently. But if your goal is to truly empower people and to grow people and to develop a business that's independent of you, then you have to delegate this leadership, and you have to allow them to fail and pick them up and coach them up and try it again. It's the only way that you're going to be able to mentally and physically check out and know that things are being run at a level that you can live with. I hope that makes sense.
Yes,
Makes a lot of sense.
It makes perfect sense. And I will give Kelsey credit. Again, she was the one that wisely pumped the brakes, because I knew this, but I still would have forged ahead with the new building anyway. I
Right.
knew I had things to fix, but I would have forged ahead with the new building anyway. And she said, well, if you have these things to fix, wouldn't you want to figure that out in your current space first? Which was a wise choice.
Amen. That's the perfect question to ask. So then my next piece of advice would be, I'm not deterring you from doing this, but I think you should beta test it in your current facility. And we can, offline, we can map out what that looks like. But could you figure out a way to reduce your work week to 30 hours a week, with, say, 10 hours or 15 hours at the chair, and pour into leadership and pour into systems and pour into the ultimate goal of, I want to have everything be less dependent on me. And if you can do that in this current 10 operatory facility over the next 6 to 12 months, then you've created the blueprint to expand into this next venture. If after 6 or 12 months, you're like still bringing shit home with you, still stressed out, still not to suggest that you are now, but you know what I'm saying. Then that's maybe God's way of saying, this is not a good idea. Like, we should maybe pivot a little bit here, because there's nothing worse than taking. I hate it when clients come to me and say, I opened up a second and third location and I'm completely at wit's end. And then when you kind of peel back the onion, you realize that the first location was a mess, and they didn't want to deal with the mess. Instead, they were like, well, let me go pursue this shiny object. And now they've just exponentially created more problems for themselves. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I would start. What specific questions do you have in regards to that? Like, if we had to get tactical, granular, action items, stuff like that.
How do I pick my leadership team, and what would you advise for starting to develop those leaders?
Yeah, super good question. First thing I would do is come up with a job description, right? Of what specific, in an effort to manage expectations, what specifically do I need these people to do, right? And I always break down team leads, office managers into two distinct categories. There's going to be patient-facing tasks, or just like, the granular, or the grunt work type tasks, and then there's going to be leadership tasks. And you need to wear both those hats if you're going to sit in this seat. So as a dental assistant lead, I need you to be a great chairside assistant, right? I need you to maintain schedules and stuff like that. But I also need you to train a new hire. I also need you to have accountability conversations with people that are not meeting expectations. I also need you to have a regular cadence of one-on-ones with the team. So make sure that they feel heard and make sure if they know that they're winning or not, like, and so on and so forth. So from my perspective, what we've done is when you come up with really clear job descriptions and you advertise first internally and then externally for the position, when you sit down with someone and have coffee and you're interviewing them, you can say, this is the playbook. This is what I need you to do. And it prevents you from making your best dental assistant the lead dental assistant. Because that's the problem that we run into. You know, so-and-so has been with me for 10 years and she makes the best temporary, so she must be a good dental assistant lead. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, my current lead, dental assistant lead in my flagship office, is came on as a sterilization tech. She doesn't even know how to chairside assist. So I have such a big assistant team that I needed that person to double down on leadership, right? Double down on accountability conversations, double down on making sure that you're helping people understand if they're winning or not. And if they're not winning, what tools and resources can we give them so they can start winning? So that's where I would start. Decide what your org chart or accountability chart, to use traction language, looks like, and then define the job description for each of those seats that's going to be in this org chart. And it starts with you. Like, you may, where are you at on this chart? And how many hats are you wearing? Are you still wearing the HR hat? Are you wearing a marketing hat? Are you still the IT guy? Like, we're going to have to, you only have 40 hours in this work week. And if you're going to be spending 3 or 4 hours a month in the server room, then something's wrong. So we got to figure that out.
And then if I want to still go around and shake hands and kiss babies, and someone comes to me with a clinical problem, do I need to just put the brakes on and say, go to your lead about that?
Well, it depends. If you're the clinical director, which I think you would be if we were going to break down an accountability chart, it depends on what the clinical problem would be. So if it's a situation like Dr. Smith's last couple endos have been not good, right? They've taken too long. I've noticed that he obturated when the canal wasn't dry. Like, those are only problems that you can solve, right? Unless you have another clinical director on the team, right? Or even a lead doctor. You're going to get to a point where you could probably designate a lead doctor for the flagship. But right now you're in that seat. So that's something that you'll have to address. But if it's any other clinically related problem, let's put it on hygiene. Let's say that somebody comes to you and says, Mary, the hygienist, has been doing scaling and root planing, and when she takes her post root planing bite wings, it's still clear that there's calculus everywhere, right? Now, you could solve that problem, but the better option is to loop in the hygiene lead and say, hey, just wanted to give you a heads up. This was brought to my attention. Let me know if you need any help in solving it. And you let her take on that responsibility. Maybe you role play with her a little bit on how she should have the conversation with Mary. But your ultimate job is to grow her, is to grow the lead so she feels comfortable having that conversation. And then it always comes back to the why, right? Like, why do we need to have that conversation? Well, because we want to grow that hygienist. I'm assuming they don't want to intentionally leave calculus on teeth, right? So we need to make them aware. We need to grow their clinical skill set. That benefits the patient, that benefits the hygienist, that benefits the practice, and then ultimately benefits the team lead because they get to grow in their leadership. So it's a good question. It really just depends on what the problem is. But in summary, if it's a clinical related issue from the doctors, you're still going to have to own that. But if it's a TC showing up late for work, that's not a you problem, right? That's a well, what did the front desk lead say when you brought that to them? Well, I haven't brought that to them. Well, why are you coming straight to me? Help me understand. Well, I always go straight to you. Well, I hear that, and that's a system that I developed wrongfully so, right? I am used to solving everything, but I'm really trying to empower my leaders. I'm really trying to empower Jane, who's the front desk lead, to own some of these leadership responsibilities. So I super appreciate you going to Jane and unpacking it. And I'll go with you. We can unpack it together, or however that's going to play out. But when you just start solving problems by bypassing team leads, you really just disenfranchise them. You really kind of cut their leadership development off at the knees. And it only really serves your ego because you get the feeling of I can solve everything.
Sure.
And at this point, if he's already set it up in the everyone comes to Luke for problems, does it cause any friction then? Now all of a sudden he has these leads and now it's like seen as favoritism. I know he should have the interview, let's say, with each one of them. Yeah. But you have to justify, and then are people now mad at that leader that they weren't the one chosen?
It depends. It's a great question. So I would flip it and ask Luke, why, as you try to kind of beta test what you want to do over the next 3 years, why is it important to have team leads?
To take things off my shoulders.
Right. Because why? Why can't you just work 50 hours a week or 60 hours a week and continue to take on that responsibility?
Because that's not healthy for the business or my family or personal life.
Right. So what got you here won't get you there. Right. And I found that that's an easy conversation to have with staff members, and you can honestly unpack it. Every time we talk to someone, we have to unpack the why. So why are we doing this? Because I'm coming to the point where, we're getting so big that when I'm trying to solve for everything, I go home, and the fact that I only live 5 minutes away just exacerbates this. I'm so stressed out. I walk in the door, I kick the dog, I yell at my 3-year-old, right? And I'm just a hot mess. And then Kelsey's yelling at me the rest of the night. I can't have that anymore, right? So I need to solve for this. And by me empowering other people, by me allowing other people to grow, solves for that. Now, your question to how does it work with someone that's been like a peer for 10 years, and then all of a sudden they get promoted into a leadership position? That's a much more nuanced conversation. And I think it all, based on my experience, because I've made this mistake, by giving everyone an opportunity to interview for the position, deciding if you have the best candidate internally or if you need to look externally, all of those things factor into making sure that we have the right person. The other part of it is, because you can't be everywhere all the time, I'm sure your assistants and your hygienists have questions in the moment, right? You want to be able to give them a resource where they can get those things addressed in the moment. So when you don't have a hygiene lead and people are just waiting for a minute of your time so they can come to you and ask, that's not the best solution. The best solution is to empower a hygiene lead that's there on the front lines with the team. And the whole hygiene team knows, if we have a question about this new gingival therapy protocol, I can go right to the hygiene lead and ask, as opposed for waiting for Luke to become available a couple of days from now and then go knock on his door and say, "Hey, doc, do you have a minute?"
Got it.
That makes sense.
Sweet. So what are we going to do? What's today? Today's Monday. Is it Monday?
Monday, yeah.
Today's Monday. Yep.
Today's Monday. What are we thinking we're going to do this week in an effort to kind of make this flywheel start to gain momentum?
Make a list of everything I'm currently doing that I would need to hand off.
Now, are we going to hand it off and just abdicate leadership, or are we going to kind of hand it off and train people to manage these things and to evaluate them and stuff? Okay.
First, I need to come up with a list. Then I need to find, who is going to do what. And then I have to find out who the who is.
Who the who is. I love that. That's a good call. Dan Sullivan wrote a great book called Who Not How. And in there, he really unpacks how when you surround yourself with who's or super who's, people that can kind of manage lots of things, you don't need to like micromanage them. You don't need to spend all day explaining the how. Like, you can just trust that they know what they're doing. Right. I just love that concept. Yeah, I think that's a great plan, brother. And please reach out to me. I've made every mistake in the book, so I can maybe full time for you and send you some systems and job descriptions and accountability charts and whatever you need to, not necessarily to take my stuff and just take my logo off and slap your logo on it, but to just read through the material and be like, okay, yeah, this is a good idea. This is a good idea. This is a shitty idea. I don't know what he was thinking there. And then just get your creative juices going to kind of create the perfect system for what you're up against.
Got it.
Yeah. That's
Thank
helpful.
you so much.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions, guys, before we turn off?
I don't think so. Thanks for your time.
Thanks again.
All right. Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, Kelsey and Luke from suburban Chicago. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tenori, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.